and welcome back to another episode of Examining Medicine, from traditional to alternative and beyond. Today, we are going to be talking about stripping away the mask of trauma to truly live a healthy and fulfilled life. I am so excited for our guest today, Ari Gronich, performance therapist, because we are talking about a subject that we have not talked about yet on this show, but I am super excited because I truly believe in this concept of having trauma that limits you from reaching your best version of yourself. And this is what he does for a living. So he's going to walk us through what he does, how he does it, and some of his challenges. So I'm really excited to have him on the show. Thank you so much for joining us, Ari.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
So you call yourself a performance therapist. So just for the audience, tell us kind of broadly what exactly is that?
Yeah. So back 20 plus years ago, 25 years ago, when I moved to Los Angeles, originally from Oregon, the state had no statewide licensing requirements. And so I was working with elite athletes, helping them with their performance go from injuries to gold medals and world championships. And one of my clients dubbed me the performance therapist because as I'm working with these athletes and they're, been struggling to perform.
Yeah.
I would come in and work with them, and within, 10 minutes of a session, I think one of my clients, we took 0.4 of a second off his time in 10 minutes.
Wow.
So that's how I got the performance therapist. But really, performance is more to do with a general sense than just in the results. So general sense of wellness, general sense of anything that I choose to do. My body is it's a little crass, but I call it my body is my bitch, and its job is to do whatever I tell it to do instead of it telling me what it can and can't do. And so the goal in life is to turn your body into a performance machine so that you can live optimally.
Yeah. Okay. So essentially that's what you do. You predominantly have worked with all these athletes to kind of help get them through whatever it is that their body is preventing them from what they want to do, and,
Exactly.
and kind of help them get through that. So that's why I wanted to talk to you, because you, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you deal with people who have experienced a lot of injuries, because I was one of those athletes and it completely took out my career. But, and so who have an injury, you help them almost work through that, because I will tell you, having been on the other side, so I played college basketball, tore my ACL, MCL, all that in my knee. And I really thought I was going to the WNBA, which was relatively new at that point. You know what I'm saying? And then after that injury, I did it during a layup, and I was so scared to do any of that again because I did not want that when you land and it just, you know what I'm saying? And after that, it's almost like your body's like, no thanks. But that's with athletes, but you can do this with with everyone. So is this kind of the concept? People have a traumatic event that occurs, and automatically their body and their mind, because it's mental too, is almost I don't want to go there again. And you kind of help them work through that. Is that kind of the gist?
Yeah. So my background stems both the physical, mental, emotional side and spiritual side of the body, right? So
yes.
I have training in clinical hypnotherapy. I have training in EFT and trauma work, in tantra work, in physical therapy, chiropractic, massage.
Yeah.
I have a lot of background in layered from all different perspectives of a human being.
Yeah.
And so you have to work on people from where they sit, right? Wherever that is. So if somebody's sitting in an injury, they probably have a feeling about that injury. There's probably an emotion associated with that feeling. There's probably some kind of way that injury has made them feel about themselves and the thing that they're trying to do. So for the layman, right?
Yeah.
Getting up out of a car and being able to walk through a grocery store from the far back of the parking lot, a lot of people cannot do that anymore. it's actually, it's really sad that we've developed a society where it's hard to, like, you have to find the closest parking spot. You can't walk, right? And then you got to lean on your cart because you can't hold your own body up.
Yeah.
So for laymen, for somebody who just wants to play tennis until they're 85, you know, whose performance is absolutely a mindset and a physical state of being, right? And an emotional tie, right? What is the emotional tie that you have towards the injury? So when you got injured, you had an emotional tie towards that injury. The emotional tie said, if I do this thing that I love to do, I'm going to hurt myself again. So I'm not going to do what I love. And then you start that emotional spiral. You're no longer doing the thing that in some cases keeps you alive, keeps you vibrant, keeps you energized. And now you're living a traumatic life instead of a life based on possibility. And so, yeah, when we talk about performance, when we talk about optimizing a human being, whether you're an elite athlete or not, we're talking about taking every aspect of who you are. I tell people, you're not broken. Nobody needs to fix you. You don't need to fix yourself. There's nothing to fix. It's literally stripping away the masks of trauma that other people have put on top of you.
Yeah, that's true.
And so if you can take those words that people say, the things that they tell you you can and can't and should and shouldn't and, you know, do, the things that they shame you for, if you can take all of that stuff that you've built up in layers of masks of trauma and you can start stripping those off, then all of a sudden, what is possible, right? It's not who am I going to be without this pain, like a hard thing. It's who can I create if I
That
don't
is
have
so
this
cool.
pain? Who can I create in myself if I'm not stopped by trauma, if I'm not stopped by injury, if I'm not stopped by fear?
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. And so I have so many more questions because like this is such an important topic for me that a lot of people I feel like don't really talk about. They just kind of treat without first identifying all this other stuff with which to me is like the start of treatment, the identification that you have these emotions, like you said, and these thought process that are tied. But before we get into that, like what even made you decide to go into this field? This is such a great field and you can help so many people.
So I'm going to try to condense that story into a fairly short story, but age 3, I was molested. By age 7, I had been raped. I'd been molested again. I was starting to get hot flashes and migraines, going through symptoms of menopause. By age 12, I had to be injected into puberty. I was not going through puberty. And by age 14, I had to have breast reduction surgery. So on a physical level, I was medically a mystery to every doctor I've ever gone to. On the emotional level, I was told at 7 that I was displaying signs of somebody who had been molested. And so I should go to a psychologist. And so I went to my first psychologist at 7. I went to my first hypnotherapist at 9. At 8, I did EST, which, if anybody knows EST, back in the 70s, was the beginning of the self-improvement movement. And so I had done encounter groups and LifeSpring and Landmark and all these different things as my parents were trying to fix me, to figure out what was broken in me and fix me. And so I got introduced to a lot of trauma at a very young age and a lot of possibility in language and things for healing. And then my parents also had Amway in the garage. So I had boxes of herbs, boxes of
I remember Amway.
you know, health products and entrepreneurship. So I'm like, I was a gymnast, martial artist. I played a lot of sports. And so you combine injuries, medical conditions with trauma and all those things. By the time I was 17, I had already become a master herbalist and aromatherapist. And when I was 18, I decided I was dead. So
I'm like, wait, what?
well, I went whitewater rafting on no sleep, got sunstroke, heat stroke. I was taking a homeopathic remedy of snake venom that the naturopath gave me. It mixed with all of the above. I ended up dead in the hospital. By the time I got there, I was already gone. 26 minutes later, they brought me back. And about 3 days later in the hospital, I sat up and I said, I think I need to be a healer. So that's how it began.
Wow, that is definitely a loaded response. That's a
Yeah,
lot. That's a lot to have
good
gone through
question.
at such a young age. And so going through almost this death type of experience, you awoken again and you're like, this is what I want kind of my life to be, and this is what I want to be able to do for other people.
I think it was more visceral than that. I don't
Yeah.
think there was a logical thing. I think it was more, I need to be a healer because people are suffering.
Yep.
I'm suffering and nobody seems to know how to fucking deal with it. And I'm sorry for the language, but
Yeah.
I'm sure your patients and the people listening are feeling the same way.
Yeah.
Nobody knows how to help me. And
Yeah.
so if nobody knows how to help me, then there's nothing that I can do in my emotional state for hope, because I am hopeless at this point because nobody is helping me. And so this is the state of the world that we have, medically speaking.
Yeah.
We have a lot of people who are going to a lot of people who aren't doing a freaking thing to help them.
Yeah.
And people are sick, they're tired of going to doctors, they're tired of being in the system that's perpetuating a 7-minute meeting without getting actual care. You know, we're just in this place of, we need results, we want performance, we want the things that we're doing to show up in the world as an actionable result to what we've done. We want the things that we're doing to mean something, right?
Yeah.
Emotionally. And so if we're doing all of this stuff and nothing's working, what happens to the emotional, spiritual state of a community?
No, yeah, no, I agree. I mean, it eventually starts to decline. People lose hope, and then it becomes like kind of, a little bit chaotic. And me and you have had conversations about this offline, like, which is one of the reasons I'm doing this show. This is why you have your lovely podcast, Creating a Better Tomorrow, which I recommend everybody tap into. It's because it's this idea of there needs to be change. There needs to be change. There needs to be something different, because the type of healthcare, and for me specifically, world that we're living in is not working. It's not working. It's not perpetuating healing. It's only perpetuating treating with pharmaceutical companies and insurance companies, and then kind of it being on repeat. So this is the whole reason, I think, why we're doing what we're doing. So no, like I love what you're doing, obviously. And I love this idea because you're right. And me and you've spoken about it. Medicine, MD medicine, the medicine that I was trained in, is not based on emotions and some of these visceral responses and some of these thoughts that control, our behaviors. It's purely based on what are you presenting with and what are your behaviors, and then let's treat that. And I'm like, that's not the way we need to be practicing medicine. Almost like we need to strip away these traumas. We don't learn about traumas as far as creating medical problems in med school at all. And now that was the other thing that I was going to talk to you about, because now all this stuff is coming out about ACEs, and I've experienced in my own patients where it's like they cannot move forward with whatever they want to do because they haven't addressed this trauma or this event or multiple traumas or events. And as an MD, I wasn't trained to do that. I wasn't trained to address all of these things over here. I'm like, okay, well, you have hypertension, you have diabetes, you have obesity. Well, here's the plan. you know,
Right.
and this is my issue with healthcare now. That is not treating that's, you're not doing justice for people when that's all you're doing. And it's really unfortunate that in the MD system, the traditional med school system, that's what we're being, that's how we're being told to treat patients. So it's always refreshing when I meet people like you and other people who weren't trained in our system but can see kind of on the outside, either based on your own experience, like what you have, or like for me, based on my patient encounter experience, to realize like this is not working. So I really appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah, they call it moral injury in your industry right now, that there's a lot of moral injury going on within the doctors, the nurses, the healers of the industry are really getting pissed off, and they're getting
Yep.
traumatized and
Yep.
morally injured because they're being told that they're not allowed to do the shit
Yep.
that they've been trained to do. They're not allowed to treat patients the way that they know will actually help.
Yep.
That's a systemized form of exploitation.
Yeah.
Okay. It's exploitation of the workers, and it's exploitation of the patient, of the customer, because they're not giving what the customer what they're coming to get. The customer is coming to get, they got diabetes, they're coming to get the diabetes gone. They're
Yeah.
not coming to get a whole bunch of pills to take for the rest of their life. They're
Yeah.
not getting something that's going to make them so that they're going to just continually grow sicker and sicker for the rest of their life. They
Yeah.
want the diabetes gone. Well, that's possible, as you know, being a bariatric surgeon. We can do that. Even type 1 diabetes, they're now finding, is reversible if we can get rid of the gut issues that are going on with leaky gut and you know, SIBO and et cetera. So if we can do that, and if we have the technology, let me akin it to something. We found out that the earth was round, right?
Yeah.
But because of money concerns, right? We're taking 100 years to decide and to tell people that it's round, because we got to send out a few of our wealthier people to explore, make sure that they take up all the land, make sure that they own everything that's needed to own before we tell everybody that the earth is round.
Yeah.
Okay. We
Yeah.
have the technology to cure things. We have
Yeah.
the technology and the knowledge to make people better permanently. And yet we're not doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
And
no, I agree.
that's the biggest, like, the people, the clients, the people listening to this show, their job, their responsibility, their duty is to fight every single time they go to a doctor, to fight for their rights to
Yeah.
have proper medical care, to
Yeah.
fight for their right for more than 7 minutes, to fight for their right to be able to tell their story and to receive proper care, right? That's their job.
Yeah.
And so we have to educate them on their
Yeah.
job. And on
Correct.
the other side of the spectrum, we have the medical staff, we have the nurses, we have the doctors. They need to start refusing to listen to the bureaucracy that's telling them to do the wrong thing. They
Yeah.
need to be able to stand up, get really freaking loud about it on platforms like this, so
Yeah.
that everybody is aware of the facts, not of just the situation.
Yeah.
And then those doctors like you, and you and I have talked about this,
Yeah.
need to collaborate
Yeah.
with each other instead of hiding in our cells trying to figure out how to do medicine without being arrested,
Yeah.
okay, and fined and have our
Yeah.
licenses taken away and yada yada,
Yeah.
etc. Okay, we need to collaborate, because bigger together, powerful together, collaborate to succeed rather than gather to complain. This is like my slogan right now. We need to gather, collaborate to succeed instead of gathering to complain. We need to stop talking about it and start doing it. How can we build this new world, right? You mentioned my show, Create a New Tomorrow. How
Yeah.
can we create a new tomorrow if we're telling everybody that the earth is still flat?
Yeah. No, no, I agree. And I think like, and me and you kind of agree on this, like having platforms like this where we can reach a lot of people, collaborating. Like I've met so many people on this show. I'm sure you have too. I mean, one of the reasons I exited traditional medicine is kind of like what you were saying. The insurance, I'm saying, hey, insurance company, I need to be able to spend more time with this patient and help them get them through their trauma. Insurance company is coming back to me and saying, are you prescribing a medicine? Because if not, we're not going to pay for that. So you can ask the patient to pay for that. And I'm like, well, hey, insurance company, the patient is already paying you $600 a month. They're not going to want to pay an additional however much my fee is so I can help them, insurance company. And so it was kind of that battle that I decided I'm done with insurance companies. And you know, they're huge. Insurance and pharmaceutical companies are huge. They have a lot of money. They have a lot of influence on the political, space. And so it's very difficult, to do things. So a lot of physicians are leaving insurance companies. And for the patients, one of the reasons they're doing that is because of this idea. We want to heal. We don't just want to treat. And insurance companies, unfortunately, are not reimbursing us for the things that we want to do to truly get to the root of the problem, which is not necessarily just a medication. There's so many other things to help get to the root of the problem. So
medication is never the root. Medication is never the root. You never, ever have a deficiency of metformin. You never have a deficiency of Lipitor. You never have a deficiency, of Valium. You never have a deficiency in this stuff.
Right.
You have a deficiency maybe of vitamin D. You may have a deficiency of iron. You may have a deficiency, of water. Most
vitamin
people
and mineral, like natural vitamin and minerals that your body has. Yes, but never the pharmaceutical company type of thing. So I want to ask you, how do you start with kind of stripping away these traumatic events for your patient? So maybe if you can give us like a scenario of either a fake patient or something that you've experienced, and then how do you kind of work through that?
Right. So soma is your body.
Yeah.
Body is your memory center. So if you think about the body like a computer, the way that a lot of people have been thinking about it is they think that the brain is the entirety of the computer, meaning that they think the brain is the processor, the memory storage, the nervous system, all of that is all brain. And it's not, as you know. The brain is the processing unit. It's where all the nervous system goes through to process and deliver information into the place where the memory lies, which is the cells, the soma, the tissue. And so the memory center of our bodies don't have language, right? It has code. It's primal.
Mm-hmm.
The emotional center is primal. It doesn't have a language. So when we get hit, when we feel a hit of something, it's a gut punch, right?
Yeah.
It's not a sound. It's It's a sound. When we have somebody do something we love and we it's a laugh. It's not a language. It's sometimes it's hysterical laughing. It's an emotion. And so first thing that you have to understand is you can't talk to trauma. Okay? Trauma doesn't understand language. You can't talk to it. It's not cognitive. It has no language. It's primal, back of the brain. Okay? It's a primal thing. Primal things have no language. They have sounds. They have movements. They have emotions. So the first thing I tell people is when you're feeling something, anything, start making a sound to associate with it. Right?
Yeah.
What's the sound that makes? If I'm feeling sad, it usually makes a whimpering or a crying sound. And so I want to go into the feeling that's making me so uncomfortable instead of away from the feeling that's making me uncomfortable. So I consider it the same thing I consider the body. The body has jobs that it's trying to accomplish. And most of the time we don't recognize that it has a job. And so we try to go away from it and run away from the thing it's trying to do. So a cramp, for instance, we try to get out of a cramp. I tell people to squeeze into the cramp because if you squeeze into the cramp, you're helping it do its job, in which case it doesn't need to do its job as much. The job of a cramp is to push lactic acid out of the muscle. So if we go out of it, we suck that acid back in and we get it more cramps more. Same thing with emotions. We have to go into the emotion. We have to actually help the emotion express itself so that it can come out of us.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing, is stop bottling up
Yep.
our emotions. Stop trying to be somebody that other people think you need to be so that they're comfortable around you. Right.
Yeah.
That's the key, is like their comfort means nothing.
Correct.
Don't worry about their comfort. Be you. So being you means expressing everything you're feeling. So, you know this, cortisol levels. If cortisol levels jump, which is your adrenal glands, where does that fat show? It's belly. You get this belly fat, lower belly fat.
Yeah, correct.
Okay. So if you don't
cortisol is the stress hormone.
You can't work out that belly fat. That you can't work out at a gym. It's cortisol. It's a chemical that's creating that, right? So what do you need to do? You need to de-stress. How do you de-stress? You express your emotions. That's how you de-stress. So we're living in a society where everybody is taught to bottle up, bottle up, bottle up. And we're in this fucking pressure cooker right now. I'm sure that the audience can feel it. We're in this pressure cooker going on in the world right now because nobody's letting off the steam until it's time to blow up. And then we have protests, we have riots, we have violence and abuse and
shots, all this violence. Yeah.
We have all this expression.
Yep.
And it's just not a healthy version of the expression. The healthy version is, before it gets to that point, express it in a healthy way. So if we're expressing our emotions in a healthy way, all of a sudden, all of the medical shit that happens because of stress, heart disease, diabetes,
everything, almost
everything diminishes greatly. Can you breathe now? Can you feel that? Diminishes. Now, all that stress is gone. Now I'm not consumed by stress. Now I can actually do the things that I want to do, to think about how I want to live the life of my dreams, how to be that healthy, fulfilled person, because the stress has been released. Stress is not meant to be held,
like inside,
and to be held. It's meant to take you through a circumstance and then be released, and then take you through a circumstance and then be released. That's its function. We have to help our bodies do their function in a way that is a natural thing. So if we watch and pay attention to what our body's doing and telling us, we can then respond in a way that says, oh, well, let me help you do that. And then we don't have to experience that pain. You know, we learn in sports this thing called RICE, where we rest, ice, compress, elevate, right? I've changed that up because you don't want to ice a specific injury. Okay. You want to ice a system. So you ice the system, you cool down the system in an ice bath or in a cryo chamber and a whatever, right? But you then heat with wet heat the injured spot. Why? Because you want to help the swelling. You want to help that swelling. Why is it swollen? It's doing a job. It's got to help it do its job. It won't need to do the job as often and as much and for as long. So if you can help it do its job by adding some good inflammation with wet heat, I like to add a little muscle balm to that, right? You add the wet heat. Now all of a sudden, that job that your body's trying to do can be fulfilled. When it's fulfilled, it says, I can now relax because I've been fulfilled.
That makes sense.
Okay. So we want to start paying attention to our bodies in a way that says, what is the purpose of that's happening? What is the purpose of this symptom? If I have diabetes, what's the purpose of that symptom? What is it trying to tell me? What am I doing that's giving it this response, and how can I stop doing that so I don't get that response? And that's everything in life. That's your business, that's your business, that's your person, that's everything in life. If we ask ourselves, what's the nature of this? What is it trying to accomplish? All of a sudden, everything that becomes an answer is no longer a solution to a big major problem. It's just, oh, okay, I can
Yeah.
just do that.
Correct.
It becomes
Yeah.
more simple. It takes away all of the overwhelm and stress out of your brain, you know, and now you can live and say, oh, what do I want to do? Well, I like to play tennis. Well, I want to volunteer. I want to be
Yeah.
active in this role in life. I want to be part of that solution. I want to be,
Correct.
and now you can actually like do it because you're not overwhelmed by the
Yeah.
feeling of internal distress.
Yeah, like
And
crippled. You're
pain.
not crippled anymore. And I want to add to that because I like the way you put that question, because I think that can answer a lot of questions in medical and everything. Like, what triggered this? You know, that's pretty much what triggered this. And so, unfortunately, in traditional medicine, we don't really look at that, unfortunately, or kind of ask that question. So I would say, as a provider of any sort or the patient, your first question should be what triggered it. If it's an obvious injury, that injuries are obvious, right? I always call them like acute things. Those are usually you land it wrong, you trip, or whatever the case may be. But some of the more chronic stuff, like obesity and diabetes, and I mean, they all have triggers. And believe it or not, I'm learning on this show and through my own clinical practice, there's so many triggers. So Ari, I learned maybe a couple months ago that discrimination and racism can be a trigger for diabetes and obesity
Yes, it
because
can.
of the stress and the response that people mount to that over so many years it causes. So we need to ask ourselves, what is the trigger? And then that is, we need to kind of almost like move backwards, because a lot of the stuff that we're seeing now are epidemics that we're seeing now: heart disease, obesity, and diabetes. They're all at epidemic levels in the US.
Right.
Those are
And
all
they're stress.
preventable.
Yeah. They're
Yeah.
stress epidemics. They are
Yeah,
stress
correct.
epidemics.
Exactly. Exactly. All of which can be prevented. Those things are also now triggering stuff like cancer because of the mutations that stress is causing in our bodies. It causes genes and different stuff to mutate. And then we start having other problems like cancers and all this other stuff. Some of it's genetics, but some of it is purely from stress induced mutations that can be preventable. And
Yeah.
so these are all things that need to be looked at. People need to be educated on. Providers need to collaborate, kind of like what we've discussed. There's so much.
Right.
There's so much.
The epigenetics are more important most cases
Yes.
than the genetics, right?
Yes.
Although
You're
we
right.
know that the factors of them, but we could also just map out, based on Chinese medicine, we can map out like kidneys. If you're having kidney issues, you're probably got a lot of worry in your life. You're probably a chronic worrier. You probably have this feeling of pending doom. You get kidney issues
Yeah.
because that's what is like. I scared the piss out of you, right? We
Yeah.
have language. We have language that we've created for this. If you're
Yeah.
angry, I am angry as shit. Why? Because that's all liver. It's
Yeah.
liver toxins. So if you're angry, if you got liver issues going on, right?
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
probably got a lot of hidden, buried anger. This isn't telling you you're an angry person. It's hidden, buried anger that you've suppressed, right? If you've
Yeah.
got pancreas issues, sugar issues, sweetness of life, the sweetness of life has left. And
Yeah.
so you get issues because your sweetness is gone. If your lungs, the breath of life, you're breathing life in, it's inspiration, exhilaration, right? This is supposed to be the place in which you breathe in life. If you have lung issues, what are you not breathing in? What of life have you decided to not be grateful for? And so we actually can map based on where we know scientifically for thousands of years these studies have been done. The
Yeah.
nervous system tells you the organ goes to here and the nervous system goes up to this part of the brain, and when this part of the brain is triggered, it goes down to that organ. We
Yeah.
know this. We can tell this. So these emotional ties and the health of our people are
Yeah.
so
Linked.
intertwined
Yeah.
that they can never be taken for granted because they have to be included with all plans. You can't create more stress in somebody that you're trying to heal. That's why shamans used to go to somebody's house, or medicine men, doctors originally used to do house
Yeah,
calls.
that's
They
true.
would go and stay at the house for a week. They would
Yeah.
learn how they were living. They'd go through the cupboards. They'd see if there's mold. They'd find out if every possibility of what's going on in their environment, in their way
Yep.
of living,
Yep.
and find that out first before they start treating and giving drugs. And so we
Yep.
have gone so far away from natural medicine, from
Yep.
natural way of even thinking about health and healing, to this like assembly line patch job where
Yeah.
we're treating people as though they are literally on an assembly line. Here's your Band-Aid, go. Here's your Band-Aid, go.
Yeah.
Here's your Band-Aid, go. Never are we going to actually fix the problem. We're
I
just
agree.
going to give them the Band-Aid and go, and Band-Aid and go. So this
I
is
agree.
where we're at in medicine. So as patients, as the audience of patients, you have a job. And that's to fight back and say, no, I'm not going to accept this level of care. I want better care. And if you have enough people doing that, the system doesn't have a choice to change. As long as you're willing to accept the situation you're in, you're going to continue to perpetuate it and make it worse, because it's never going to stay the same. It's only going to get worse or better, one way or the other. It doesn't have, there is no stagnation in this. It only gets worse or gets better. So as patients, as doctors, as physicians, as holistic health people, we need to start collaborating together to design the new system, to design the system that will work for everybody, that will be in a place where what the focus is, the incentive is health, not money. The incentive is you get better, not we do more procedures.
Correct.
That it's that simple. You want to cut fraud out, make the incentive the result, not the procedure. If as long as money is the incentive, we're going to have 20 procedures where we could have had one. We're going to have 20 visits to a doctor where we could have had one. We're going to, anytime that you put money as the incentive, then money is going to be the thing that motivates the outcome. And the outcome is motivated by money means that you're not going to get better. Because if money's the motivation, they need you to keep coming back. If you need you to keep coming back, you can't be better. So we need to change the incentives in the system directly. Performance, right? We need results. I am a performance therapist because I get results. You're a doctor that has stopped doing what she was doing because you saw that it wasn't getting the result. If all of us just go, are we getting the results? No, let's do better today. Let's do something different. Let's analyze what we've done. Oh, it's not working. Let's do better. We have the best technology in the world. We're the highest level of medical innovation in the world, and we have the worst outcomes in the world. Why? Because we're stupid. Because we're stupid, and we think that money is so freaking important that we're willing to kill our friends and our family and our brothers and our sisters and our mothers for it.
Yeah, that's sad. No, that's sad. And that was my question too, like in general, how we have really bad outcomes. We have some of the, best technologies, like you said, but our outcomes, our epidemics are some of the worst in the world. How come no one really is asking, this is not matching up? Like, I feel like not enough people are asking that question.
Oh, I am. People have been trained to be asleep.
Yeah.
Right? You don't like being called sheep, but we've been trained to be led, trained to be flocked, trained whether it's Trump or Biden in the White House, that thing of being the leader, the shepherd, and the flock, right? This society has gone from the Wild West, right? And innovation and freedom, and let's move this country and this world forward to we can't innovate anything new until we have enough money to pay for our old ROI. We can't be adventurers. We can't be, frontiersmen. We can't be any of those things. We regulate the shit to death, so we can't do anything that's new without getting through tons of red tape. I mean, come on, people. Let's stop the madness. Let's stop being idiots about what we're doing and allowing control from very few people to control the outcomes of everybody else. I always say, a bully's best friend is the silence of others. And as long as we are willing to be silent, then we're willing to be flogged, whipped, enslaved. And, I say this, and we talked about this before. Enslavement is not somebody just whipping you and telling you to do stuff and making sure that they're controlling you. A slave is somebody whose life is completely dependent on another person. And that's job-wise, that's government-wise, that's any-wise, right? If you're completely dependent on another person, you're the slave to that person in that regard. And so we need to stop the slave mentality, because the slave mentality is somebody is above somebody else. Any which way you look at it, whether it's a boss and a manager, like the owner of a company and the person underneath him, that's his slave. It's just a different name for it. And you get paid instead of get food, and you get, money instead of a house, usually not enough to even live. So how really is that different than slavery? How have we not seen this as a society, that we have decided and chosen to be enslaved as a people? And to the medical system as a whole, stop it. Stop it, stop it, stop it. Stop doing it to the doctors, stop doing it to the nurses, stop doing it to the system. Stop it. And to the people who are in it, it's your freaking duty to stop it. It's your duty to protest the administration of your hospitals. It's the duty to protest the insurance companies. It's your duty to protest, to be loud, and to stop this stuff from happening, because there's millions and millions of people who are suffering and dying needlessly painful lives because of fucking money and stupidity in the interest, because we want to have people enslaved, because we need to control instead of love and collaborate. And it's one of my issues.
Me up. I agree. Yeah, very passionate statement. Thank you so much for giving us that wisdom and enlightening people. And we're on the same page on this. So I really appreciate you joining us today and giving us your passion in your perspective on this. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. And I like to end things with good notes. So what I'm going to suggest to your audience on a good note is to stand in front of a mirror naked and find every single thing that you can love about yourself. And don't stop looking until you find it. Stay through the uncomfortability, stay through the tears, stay through every single emotion, express it out. But if you want to strip away the masks of trauma, the first shame is your body. The first thing you had done when you were born was you got covered up, and you got told that was bad. Your body is your first shame. It's the first thing that we need to learn to love. And so if you want to strip away, start yourself on a path of getting healthy internally. Stare in the mirror naked for a while. I did 300 hours after my divorce of staring in the mirror, wailing, crying, going through suicidal urges. I mean, until I could find everything that I could love about myself and be grateful for about me. And that is the beginning of the process of healing.
Wow. Thank you.